Go ahead.
Welcome back, everybody, to the D.O.G podcast. As always, I'm Drew with German and OC. And this week, we're going to recap a little bit of what happened so far in the wild card round of the playoffs, which one of us came out as happy fans, and which one of us came out as a depressed fan, per usual.
I like how the depressed was singular, right? It was just
Yeah,
one.
just
Uh,
one guy.
so yeah, to get our reactions to these last weekend's games, man, was which is actually a lot better than I thought. I mean, wild card weekend for me has always been disappointing in the past. Like not just disappointing because because my team doesn't win, but like sometimes the games are boring.
Hmm.
This week the games were actually pretty entertaining, right?
Yeah, there was some depressing parts only because I like for me, I think the Bills is a little depressing. Maybe not depressing, but just disappointing. I
Mm-hmm.
expected a little bit more out of Josh Allen going head to head with a third string quarterback. Same thing with Joe Burrow going head to head with a third string quarterback. I expect a little bit more. I mean, they won the game off of a defensive turnover.
Right.
But yeah,
Uh,
other than that, I mean, they were entertaining games. The,
mhm.
the least entertaining game, which was the most entertaining game for me, was that Cowboys Bucks game. It was just kind of single handedly like a,
Honest,
a one game, but I
honestly, the
enjoyed it.
least
Like it was,
entertaining game.
it was good. I loved it.
Monday Night Football just never get the dub this year. Monday
Not
Night
this year.
Football always got the L's. Let's just go down the line. Let's just go one game at a time, and let's start off with the first one. That was the Niners and the Seahawks. Of course, Niners pretty much dominated there in the second half. Purdy looks like he might be the guy for next year. What do you guys think? What do you think, OC?
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much, from the talks and everything that's going around on Twitter, it's pretty much his job to lose now, you know? So it's like,
Right.
if even if Jimmy G makes a comeback or whatever, or Trey Lance, like, they're all going to be like secondary or third to him, you know? So, and I think he's earned that right, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's not like he's sitting there and barely winning games, you know? Like, this kid's dominating. Like, he's throwing for 300 yards and
Right.
he's, every single game he's thrown at least two touchdowns, and it's pretty incredible to see a kid come in like that, because I still remember when the Dolphins went up there and knocked Jimmy out of the game. I said, yes, perfect. We got the third stringer in. Like, here we go. Like, we're about to tee off. And this guy just completely annihilates the Dolphins, and he's done that to everybody since then.
Right. I mean, he's performed not just solid, but he's like making plays. Like there was this
Hmm.
play I think where he dumped off to Elijah Mitchell, where he like avoided a sack, spun around, and made an athletic play and slung it. Like he looks like he's not a guy like anywhere near like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but he can at least do the improvising, right? That you kind of need in today's NFL.
Hmm.
Drew, what do you think, man?
Um, you know, Brock Purdy has been pretty damn phenomenal, honestly.
Mm,
Um, I think I think he's just got to show up in the summer next year, and the starting job's his. Jimmy G definitely out now. You're looking
for
at the
sure.
competition between Trey and Brock Purdy, and unless for whatever reason Brock Purdy just absolutely flops in the summer, it looks like the job's going to be his.
Hmm.
I think this playoff game, you had a little bit of that. It showed his weakness of just being a rookie, right, in that first half. He had a few mistakes, nothing too costly, but he wasn't playing to that level that we've seen in the previous 4 or 5 games or whatever it was. And then halftime comes, he gathers himself. I'm sure he got some coaching, some experience in, and then just a whole new person comes out that second half. The
Hmm.
Brock Purdy that we've been watching the last month and a half. The kid's good. He's really good. He looks like he's got so much confidence. I think that's the best thing that's
Right.
going for him, outside of skill and how he's throwing the ball. He is reading defense as well, and he's very confident. I think the best play of the game is an incomplete pass that he threw to Ayuk. I think it was Ayuk in the corner of the end zone.
Right.
He avoids the
Ayuk
sack,
dropped it.
does a
Yeah.
spin, then he steps up when a defender comes by, and then yeah, he just torches it to that corner of the pylon, and then he gets nailed too. Like he took the
Right.
hit,
Yeah.
and he put it on a dime, and they just dropped the ball. But Purdy's he was impressive. That second half was very very impressive for
Right.
a rookie.
No, yeah, kind of going off of what you said, like there was some the first half, there were some times where he did kind of mess up on the reads a little bit. It wasn't so much that there were big mistakes, but he was just like there were misreads, and some of those looked pretty dangerous, right? Where he was like
Hmm.
in the middle of the field, and you're just like, oh man. But yeah, then the second half, he kind of just flicks a cigarette and he goes, "Okay, snap the ball, boom." And then there,
Yeah.
dude. Like the dude was cool, confident, collective, and I mean, he was just out there, kind of just having fun after a while. But it's also kind of nice when you can just throw a 5 yard crossing route to Debo and he takes it 78
Yeah.
yards,
Yep.
or
It's
hand
very
it off to
nice.
Christian McCaffrey, he takes it for another 85 yards. So I mean, yeah, he's making the right plays. I feel like he's kind of a level up from just a game manager, right? Where I feel
Hmm.
like he's gonna make all the right reads, make all the right decisions, and then just get the ball to his playmakers, which he's been doing, and then he can improvise, like we said earlier. Um, but I mean, we'll see what happens, especially how the game turns out next week. Like you guys said, it's for sure his job to lose. Now let's go on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, and then just coming back on the Chargers.
Let me tell you,
Go ahead.
this I've never been so excited yet so disappointed in a win, only because like Matt Shu finally got to see the Jags win the playoff game again.
Right.
We turned the game off. It was 27-0. We stopped watching it, and then I can just happen to see like on the TV outside that the Jags had 20 points. So we turned that thing back on, and Trevor Lawrence is just dicing up the Chargers. And he looked like he had all the confidence in the world after throwing 4 interceptions in the first half. It's one of the best comebacks in playoffs that I can think of in a very long time. It just kind of mind blowing to me. And then you kind of got to look at the Chargers, and they announced today that Staley's staying, and I think that's a terrible decision. I think they got to get rid of that dude. He blew it for them last year, and he blew it for them this year. Um, yeah, Staley should be gone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into, you guys. The next thing I wanted to talk about was Staley, and yeah, I disagree with the call of leaving him in. I would have fired him. But OC, I mean, the number one Herbert hater that I know of. What's your reaction to the game, man?
I mean, you're up 27-7 at the half, and you can only manage 3 points in the
Right.
second half. The defense caused 5 turnovers, so at the end of the day, we can sit there and blame the coach. We can sit there and blame the OC who's fired now.
Right.
But at the end of the day, right, you still got to make throws. You still got to make plays. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
granted, the disparity between run and pass was, I think, 70-30 in that second half, which I don't
Mm-hmm.
get because you have one of the best backs in the league with Eckler.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he only touched the ball, I think, less than 10 times in the second half is
So
ridiculous.
Right.
so they threw it 70% of the time in the second half
Yeah.
with
It was
that
like
big ass
20.
lead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, it was
that's
like
a coaching problem, right? Like,
so it was like 25-8 or something like that, like 25 passes to 8 runs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have Austin Eckler, who was single-handedly one of the best dual backs in the league. Just give him the
Mm-hmm.
ball and let him rumble for a couple yards.
Right.
And a lot of it's coaching, a lot of it's. I mean, but then at the end of the day, if you're the quarterback, you get to check down to a run if you want. You check
Right.
down to the second play if you want.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna blame everything on Herbert, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, you kind of got to take the keys of the car and just be like, hold
Mm-hmm.
on, we need 6 points here. Let me go get six.
mhm.
Right.
And instead, you left the door open. Of course, there's throws that were errant, but I mean, I was sitting there at 10-0, and I said, no way, like the Jags aren't gonna go down like this. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like Drew says, it's 27-0. I take off to the gym. I go, I'm not watching this. Like, so, but I did, like, because I had, I thought the Jags would win, but I did not think it was gonna be like that. Like
Right.
a cliffhanger. And to Doug Peterson's credit, what a call to go for two after you get the was it the personal
Right.
foul on the extra point?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm like, what are you doing, though? If you don't get it here,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta win the game with six. Instead, Trevor Lawrence extends out like he's in Space Jam, right? Gets the 2-pointer.
Dude,
it,
I got a
it
sports
pays
chub
off
on
to
that
be
play.
6'6", right? It
Yeah.
pays
Dude,
off to be 6'6". Yeah.
that is such a high IQ play. You
Right.
could see Doug Peterson, what, like he said, good call, or that was ballsy or whatever he said. He gave Trevor Lawrence credit, because I don't think that was a play call. You watch everyone at the snap. I think he just improvised. He saw that the
Like,
linebackers were off, and is like, I'm just gonna fucking go for it.
okay, but okay, great that you bring that up, right? We just talked about quarterbacks taking the keys to the offense, right? And just
Hmm.
being
Right,
like,
right.
I'm gonna be a dude right here and I'm gonna make a play, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
he made a play there. And another great call on the 4th and 1 when they came out with the three backs in the backfield, the full house, right?
And they
But
took it to
Hmm.
before
the
that,
outside. Yeah.
yeah, but before that, he had called a timeout, right? Because
Hmm.
he didn't like the setup, right? Trevor Lawrence had checked out of something, and then they called a timeout. And then they come back with the Travis Etienne outside run that
Right.
got him into field goal range.
Hmm.
So I
No.
mean, just like Doug Peterson, like takes chances, But for
Yeah.
some reason, his payoff, not like Staley's.
Hmm. Yeah.
No, I mean, I feel like there were calculated, chances, right? Not like Staley's, where it's Staley's kind of like fast and loose when he chooses to do it, right? Like I think the biggest one I think I remember it was like a fourth and like whatever on his own 18 last year against Vegas, which was
Yeah.
the game to get into the playoffs.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like Doug, for sure, this past game, I feel like it was a little bit of both. The Chargers, definitely choking it up, like you said. Like I feel like everybody across the board needs to take the blame, um, but also part of it, it's the Jaguars and the resilience, and and them having the urgency to come back like that, and Trevor Lawrence just being a dude and making a play. Like there's eventually gonna have to be a point where you have to have your dudes make
I mean,
plays.
he literally played the worst half of football you could ever play. Like,
Anybody
throws.
anybody else would have just got into the field position or just like put me under a rock. I don't want to be in the
Hmm.
stadium anymore, for reals. Yeah,
Like Tom
and
Brady did last night.
a little bit. Yeah, yeah we'll get into that one. Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the Bills and the Dolphins. And the Dolphins put up a bigger fight than I ever thought they would. Man, kudos to them. What's your reaction, OC?
Very impressed. I was sitting there, I didn't have much like thought into it or hope. I was just kind of
Mm,
like, all right, let's just get more than 10 points today. Like, let's make it respectable.
right.
You know, it's you're playing with the third string quarterback who can't throw the ball past 20 yards the past 3 weeks, and this dude comes out and it's like they said, hey, have the reins, and it wasn't his fault. Like he was literally putting the guys in positions to make plays. Like there was probably at least four drop passes of 20 yards or longer in that first half.
Right.
Um, it did get it like they got off to the slow start, but granted, Buffalo always gets off to fast starts to get against
Hmm.
anybody. But what ended up happening was just Josh Allen single handedly kept the Dolphins in the game. Like he goes and just makes a boneheaded throw against Xavier Howard, probably like 5 minutes before the half, and then he has that strip sack coming out of the half, and it puts Miami at one point. Miami takes the lead, so it's like he's making these boneheaded decisions, and then it's like he can play so great, and then there's a drop off like where he looks like he is the
Right.
third stringer on his own team.
Hmm.
But Miami, like the biggest thing, the last like month or so has been the defense, and I felt like the defense was the biggest part why they even had a chance. Like they had
Hmm.
the 6 points off the turnover and or off the strip sack and the fumble recovery.
Right.
Then they had the pick, and they were getting off the field when they needed to in that second half
Hmm.
and kept the offense. And then like we talked about coaching in the last game, right? In situational football, like you can't have the delay game on 4th and 1 with the game on the line.
Right.
Yep.
Hmm.
Especially when they give you the bump to get the play clock back to 25.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
but as far as the game went, very impressed with Miami. We can sit there and say Tua would have done this, Tua would have done that, but I mean, let's not play that game. Let's just respectable. They did what they needed to do. They almost had a chance
Hmm.
to win the game, so I'm happy with that.
Now, do you think that McDaniel's? I mean, the fact that they did have their third string quarterback, you get your
Yeah, I hit the
yeah
thing.
yeah. As the fact that they did have their third string quarterback, do you think it kind of benefited them a little bit that McDaniel's had to go into his back pocket and then just fucking pull out whatever, and it kind of just threw the Bills off a little bit. Like I feel like they were kind of out of structure when it came to like the play calling offense. Like he kind of was just throwing whatever he could to the wall. Do you think
Yeah,
that might have helped them a little bit?
yeah. I think they kind of like took the reins off him and stopped reducing his like limits and just said, "Here you
Right.
go." throw the whole kitchen sink at him. It's win or go home. Like we ain't got
Right.
nothing to lose, and this started slinging the ball like
Right.
left and right. Now, I mean, there were still some plays that were kind of like, oh, what?
You could tell he's a
Oh,
third string.
yeah, you could tell
Yeah.
why he's third
Yeah.
on the roster.
Hmm.
But there was plays that he actually made. He didn't lose the game by any means.
He looked athletic. Like I mean, he played way more athletic than he actually looks, which I think was a plus for them. Drew, your reactions, man. What do you think?
Disappointed in the Bills. I think Miami played well for what they had. Right.
Hmm.
You're down to a third string quarterback, and not everyone can have Brock Purdy as your third string
Hmm.
quarterback. Um, so they're handicapped. They're handcuffed. The Dolphins aren't going to win this game, um, even going into it. Right.
Hmm.
So for that game to be that close with Josh Allen, and everyone's talking about Josh Allen, it's his turn to be the best quarterback in the league,
Hmm.
and he never took the game over. That's what's disappointing for me. That's what worries me is what's he going to do against the Bengals this week? What's he going to
Right.
do against the Chiefs down the road?
Hmm.
What's he going to do in the Super Bowl? Josh
Hmm.
Allen seems like the last couple of years, the games that he should blow people out the water, I think he's struggling to blow them out the water. When he's time to go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, he shows up for that. So I'm just kind of a little concerned on why you can't put away the third string quarterback of the Dolphins. I didn't even wake up to watch. Well, I was awake, but I didn't plan on watching this game. I was like, I don't need to watch it. The Bills by 30. Like the Dolphins have no idea what's going on defense. Their DC is panicking to keep his job. They're playing a third string quarterback that really can't throw the ball. So I'm like, there's no point. And I got done doing what I was doing, and it was 17-17. I was like, what in the fuck is going on? Why
Hmm.
is Josh Allen tied with the Dolphins right now? This should be a blowout. Don't take anything away from the rest of the Dolphins team because they're dudes, right? I think with a healthy Tua, they easily beat the Bills. They did it once already this season. I think that they would have done it this playoff game. But I'm just a little concerned now going forward what kind of Josh Allen you're going to get in the playoffs.
Well, the thing with Josh Allen, I feel like maybe his biggest weakness right now is not knowing how to throw the ball away or check it down or just know when a play is dead. Like I feel because he has the capacity to just move it on and push it over the edge, he kind of does that, and that kind of puts him in bad situations, like that strip sack. Right? He could have easily took the ball in, took in the sack, but because he tries to make extra plays, I think it costs him a little bit, or being able to go to the check down, or because he just keeps going for the deep ball, right? Which I mean, it hit a couple times on Sunday, but I mean, there were still times where he could have just taken the easier situation, and it probably would have put his offense in a better situation versus him putting. He kind of just makes these mistakes where it puts them in bad situations, but he also has the capacity to get them out of those situations, if that makes sense. I feel like
Yeah.
you're just right now you're getting the highest of high and the lowest of lows with Josh Allen, which if he can just switch that up and be a little bit more consistent, I feel like he can take his gameplay to the next level. When it comes to playing a divisional rival for the third time, I feel like it makes it tough. So, I mean, yeah, you could say that they probably would have won with Tua, but you also never know. Like we said earlier, like
Yep.
because they were because they were playing without any handcuffs, right? Without pretty much without any fear anymore. That they were like, well, we have zero expectation on us. We got a third string quarterback. No one expects us to win. Let's just go ahead. Let's just sling it, you know.
Hmm.
And so maybe having Tua changes that mentality a little bit. I mean, we never know. They could have done the same thing. But I think when a defense plays against a quarterback for a third time, especially in a year, I feel like it gets kind of scary. That's why I'm also kind of. We'll talk about it later, but like the Eagles and the Giants having to play a team a third time, it makes it a little tough. So we'll
Hmm.
see what goes with that.
Hey, I
But
think Drew
good.
Drew talked about it with everybody that was caught off guard because like no one was really saying anything about this game, and then like everyone starts immediately hitting me up like in the second half, like, oh hey bro, we're rooting for the Dolphins, and you can tell because they came out with the stat line or the viewership for the game, and it said it peaked at was it 39 and a half, almost 40 million viewers. I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody started like once they realized like what kind of game it was, suddenly everyone started watching. And
Hmm.
it said it
Right.
was the highest like rated AFC game or AFC wildcard game in like 10 years.
To the Giants and the Vikings, which I mean, I feel like kind of was a surprise, kind of wasn't because of the Vikings being kind of lower tier, higher tier team
Frauds.
ish, right? And
The worst 13-4 team of all time.
you think so?
Yeah,
Well,
because
yeah, they
I think they're the fourth one.
aren't they like the only team with this record to have like a negative point differential, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and it showed. I feel like it showed. And you guys think it's kind of it for Kirk Cousins, or you think they're gonna kind of keep rolling with him?
Kirk Cousins not the dude, man. He's a great regular season guy. He's a good game manager. He's just a little bit better than Ryan Tannehill, honestly. I mean, you you really got to look back on Kirk Cousins and think why, like in some of these situations, why, how, what are you thinking? I mean, even Brock Purdy, a rookie, knows that on 4th and 8 you can't throw a 3-yard flat. Like what are you doing, dude? Your
Right.
season is on the line. You got to get 8 yards. So I don't know, man. Kirk Cousins, he's had some great regular seasons in his career. He's never had a great super deep run to the Super Bowl that he wasn't carried. I think with Diggs. I don't know, man. It just seems like we always talk about what's holding back the Vikings, and it's Kirk Cousins, right? It always comes down to it's Kirk
Right.
Cousins. So
I
I
mean,
don't know. I'd probably cut my losses at this point.
it is kind of weird, given the situation that he would make that throw, considering the catch that Justin Jefferson made against the Bills
Yep.
back during the regular season. Like what Justin's capable of on on a fourth down. Um, take shoot it up, man. Take a shot. OC, what do you think, man?
Yeah, like you guys said, a fraudulent team. I think like 7 or 8 of their games were like literally like one
One score
possession
games.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
12. This makes
12.
12. They were
Jesus
11 and
Christ,
0 going into this game, and now they are 11 and
11 and
1
one.
after the season
Well,
And then the
yeah.
games
See,
they lost by like big margins, right?
yeah, they got blown out.
Uh,
by
That
Dallas.
Philly blew them out. Dallas blew them out. Green Bay blew them out the second
mm,
time. But this was the game that I circled as my one upset for the weekend. Um, the lower seed that I thought had the best chance
mm,
to win, and it was just the way that um, that Daniel Jones has been playing these last couple weeks. All right, minus
mm,
the Philly game, but they just felt like a team that's been clicking. Like they don't have like marquee names on defense besides Thibodeau maybe. Um, they don't have like a great wide receiving core, but somehow Daniel Jones gets on this role. I think it has a lot to do with Brian Dable and the way he's calling the game for him.
yeah.
And it's like better than a game manager, better than what Kirk does, right? Like
Mm,
he was actually sitting in there in the pocket, making throws, hitting check downs, getting the ball to your best player, which was Saquon,
mm,
and and I just felt like they were in control for the whole game. I think they never lost a lead at any point. And so, or I think maybe they did, but it just felt like they were in control the whole game.
mm,
Like you never felt like they were out of it, or
right.
they had to scratch or claw back to get into the game. And as far as Kirk goes, I mean, the same thing you could say about the Chargers. If you want mediocrity, then keep Staley around, keep Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Like, go ahead, like you
Mm,
sign him to that big deal, then this is the result you're gonna get every time.
right. Right. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of like what you said about the Giants kind of just they don't look to one guy to carry them, right? It's kind of been a little bit off the back of Daniel Jones and Saquon, and I owe Daniel Jones an apology because I just about to label him a bust. He looks like he's going to be their guy, right? He looks like he's probably going to be re-signing with the Giants, especially with Dayball's been in 1 year. Would he just kind of just went in, kind of just changed the directory of Jones's
His
career,
career.
right? And kind of just saved him, kind of like what Harbaugh did with like Alex Smith. It looked like okay, down and out. kind of just came up and took him to the next level. And I think part of it too is I think he's allowing Daniel Jones to use his athleticism, right? And being able to get out of the pocket, and he's making runs where he's going down the field. And he's kind of a big dude too. It's not like he's a small guy, and he's not slow. He runs down the field, he does it well. And I feel, I mean, coming into this next game against Philadelphia, I wouldn't be so confident if I were Philly fans, right? Because, like I said earlier, it's the third time you're playing this divisional rival. Daniel Jones is hot. Their defense is kind of hanging in there, right? And kind of gave Kirk Cousins little fits. But like you said, they were in control the entire game, and it didn't. You just never thought that Minnesota was going to be able to put a drive together and finish that game out, right?
What
No,
about
no.
our friend, the biggest Giants fan on this? I mean, not New York Giant, San Francisco Giant fan that we have.
Drew, what are your
What?
thoughts on the game, man?
Oh, uh, you know, it was like week 8 or 9 that we talked about teams that were currently in the playoffs that we thought weren't going to be able to stay in and contend. And I picked the Giants. And they proved me right at some points. Like after I said that, they looked bad, and then they just kind of seemed like to figure it out the final third of the season, and then going into playoffs, it's like damn, they're kind of hot, they're rolling, and right now I think they're one of the hottest teams in the playoffs. Like Daniel Jones is just playing out his goddamn mind right now. It seems
Right.
like I've seen this guy now play 4 full seasons. Twice against the Cowboys for 4 years, and he what he's doing now I've never seen before. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is completely taken his game to the next level when it counts the most. That's something that we've talked about a lot on this show. Is it's not necessarily what you did during the regular season, it's who's going hot into playoffs at the right time.
Right.
And that's kind of him. That's kind of the Giants right now. Saquon doesn't have to carry the ball 25 times anymore like he had to.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Jones is able to mix up the offense a little bit where he can throw the ball, Saquon can run the ball, and if needed, Daniel Jones can tuck it and run it himself. He's capable of running for over 40 yards a game. He's proven that multiple times.
Right.
So I've been pretty impressed. I kind of agree with what German's saying. I think that last game of the season they didn't really play anyone. The Giants just kind of said, "Let's don't get hurt. Let's just kind of see what Philly can do against the backups," and they lost. But it wasn't a blowout either. Like Philly was
Right.
only able to scrounge up like 24 points or something like that, and they
Mm-hmm.
kicked like 6 field goals.
Right.
Um, so I kind of agree with German. Daniel Jones and the Giants are hot right now. I think the Eagles are gonna kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit against these guys, and you never know. The Giants just might jump up and punch them in the face.
I honestly think this is like out of all the teams this week. Well, I kind of like the Bengals, but like I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants beat the Eagles this weekend.
I wouldn't either.
I've
Yeah.
been saying the Eagles are frauds, so it
The
wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
shock me at all.
the way they're rolling, and then I don't know. Sometimes that bye week can be a bad thing for teams,
Hmm.
Right.
because it gets you out of a groove. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They're just like you said, a divisional game, and then also the fact of how the Giants are rolling right now.
Right. And it's also keep in mind that Jalen Hurts has played what, like one game in the past 4 weeks, something like that,
Yeah.
5 weeks. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and it also was against the Giants' second string. So we'll see. And definitely the Giants have all the film that they need against Jalen Hurts with their front look, with their system in
Yep.
play. But let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game, and the Bengals kind of just pulling it off on the Ravens. Um, kind of heartbreaking a little bit. The Ravens. I was kind of Huntley. I mean, he was a dude a little bit, right up until that last quarterback sneak that forced that fumble.
He
But
seemed so good and confident up until that like fourth quarter. It's like,
right,
dude, yeah, what? And then after that fumble, he was just mentally just not
it's
there.
just out of it. Yeah.
Just out of it, and
Hmm.
that's that third string mistake, right? That we talked about. I
Right.
mean, it's like 4th and 1.5,
Hmm.
right? And to try and do a QB sneak over the top, that's that's a little ballsy. You're too
Hmm.
far away. Um, and it cost them. That was the game winning touchdown.
Having backs
Um,
like Chase Edmonds, who's
yeah,
been picking up short yardage all year for you. Yeah. Right.
yeah. So I think that's just kind of the mistake that that happened. Really unfortunate that that mistake right there ended their season in a way. They had
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to score again, but that was a game winning touchdown. Um,
Mm-hmm.
on those same lines, I just like Josh Allen, a little disappointed in the Bengals. I thought the Bengals should have done a little bit better. The Ravens defense is good, but the Bengals still let a third string quarterback contend all the way until the fourth
Right.
quarter. That
Right.
shouldn't really have happened. Um, but dude, Joe Burrow, I mean, that offensive line, it seems like it gets worse and worse and worse every week, and he still figures out a way.
Right.
It's gonna be a fun game to watch them play the Bills this upcoming week.
OC, what's up with your boy Lamar, dude? What's going on?
I mean, the stuff he's been posting on social media just kind of makes it like he doesn't make a direct claim, but he's kind of insinuating like, like you should have took care of me and I would have been out
Right.
there.
Right.
And it doesn't help when your starting running back kind of goes out and says, "Yeah, Hundley shouldn't have done that. He should have gave me the ball.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not give me the ball in that situation? Like, if we would have had Lamar, we would have won." So it's like causing a little bit of turmoil within the franchise, and it's gonna be very interesting to see what they do in the offseason with Lamar.
Right.
Because as far as like the way it looks right now, they're not gonna pay him, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
gonna let him walk.
Right.
And which is sad because I mean, you would think the franchise would want him back, and Lamar wanted to be back at some point, but it sounds like both sides are kind of like over
Mm-hmm.
it and like they're just gonna
Right.
walk away from each other. But again,
Hmm.
the third divisional game of the weekend, another competitive like one possession game that came down to the end, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like the Bengals didn't look impressive. Like Drew says, like the O line is just falling apart once again. But somehow these Bengals, like they stay in games, they figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
They need miracles to happen, and they do somehow. It falls into their lap.
Right.
Um, but overall, like it sucks that Huntley was in that position, but he got him there in that position.
Right.
So that was the most impressive part for
I
me.
mean, given the run that the Bengals made last year, I do kind of think that they are kind of the most dangerous team in the AFC right now. Given because I mean they have the capacity to beat both the Bills and the Chiefs. Um, we'll see what happens this week. I thought for sure. I mean, well, I thought the Ravens were going to put up a fight because of that defense. I mean, Raekwon Smith has been an absolute steal for them. I feel like he's just made their defense a whole heck of a lot better. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was extended. So I think that franchise tag is still available. So where they might tag that on Lamar, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it. But it does kind of seem like Lamar is kind of throwing shade at the front office there for a little bit, right?
I think
Like,
he's out. He's done. He
you
bet
think
on
so?
himself. He bet on himself, and I don't think that the Ravens want to pay. I think it's hard for teams to invest in almost a run first quarterback, right?
Right. Hmm.
Lamar, I mean, he can throw the ball, he can sling it, but his biggest attribute is his ability to run the ball.
Right.
And really, after RG3, you never see these quarterbacks getting paid big money,
Hmm.
um, because they're injury prone, man, and
Right.
it's unfortunate. But their best years are their rookie seasons to the end of their first contract. They
Hmm.
they really they just get hurt. Like we talk about running backs, right? They're only good up until about 5-6 years into their contract, and then
They
that's it.
they have a
It
shelf life for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so it just seems like these very mobile quarterbacks have that same life. So
Hmm.
I do find it hard to believe that the Ravens would pay him, especially with what's kind of being said back and forth now between Lamar and the franchise.
Hmm.
So I'm going to assume that he's going to be gone next year.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of looks like that relationship is kind of done in the water, especially the way Huntley played. Maybe that the Ravens are kind of looking, saying, "Well, I mean, we've been able to do stuff without you. I mean, he kind of did win in some games there down the stretch, but I mean, also had they had Lamar, who knows how the game would have turned out? We could have, just
Hmm.
like we said about Miami and Tua, you still don't know, right?
Right.
It's just, yeah, you could have, should have, would have, but I mean, bottom line is you're out, you're done, and you lost, and it looks like Lamar is kind of on his way out of town, maybe to New York. We'll see. I mean, I feel like that'd be a pretty good spot with him, right? With Salah, you guys agree?
It could be. I don't know. I mean, you got the thing is you just got to find the right coordinator.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah, Greg Roman has been really big and key for his development as a quarterback because he styled the offense around him. Like
Right.
he let him flourish in that offense. Like they do a lot of two tight end stuff and a lot of like 22 and 21 personnel where they
Hmm.
put defenses in a bind to get him in the best position available to run. So
Let's also keep in mind that Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator for Kaepernick when Kaepernick had those successful
yeah,
years in San Francisco. Um, because once they had Kaepernick starting to throw the ball, that's when everything went downhill for him fast too.
yes, that's the only thing that scares me. Like if he
Right.
leaves somewhere, he's not gonna have Greg Roman anymore.
Exactly. Um, but yeah, I mean, we can go on and on about that situation. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about this last game, the Cowboys and Bucks. Okay, we'll move on to the next thing now. Um, no, Drew, go ahead, man. What was your reaction to the game?
Uh, it's probably the most satisfying game of the season for me. The the Minnesota game was very fun to watch. It was very entertaining. Um, the Cowboys when they beat up on Minnesota, and the same thing
Hmm.
with that Colts game when they dropped the 50 burger on them. But this one felt good. This one felt really good to beat Tom Brady. Tom Brady's first loss against the Cowboys. Um, the way that the Bucks beat the Cowboys week one, it just kind of it just shows the growth that the Cowboys have had throughout the season. Granted, the Bucks weren't that good, but you listen to a lot of people and they still pick the Bucks to beat the Cowboys. And in hindsight, you can say after it's all over, like, yeah, the Cowboys were far superior all season. The Bucks, they fell apart after they beat up on the Cowboys. All in all, it's two playoff teams in the playoffs, and it's Tom Brady. It's the GOAT.
Right.
So that's why I've told you guys I was very confident that the Cowboys would get the job done, but I'd be foolish to not be worried about Tom Brady on the other team. He's the greatest of all time. It seemed like up until yesterday, Tom Brady at any point could take over any game in the NFL. And yesterday it was kind of sad to see. It just looked like that Tom Brady effect wasn't there. It looked like that was one of the the ending points of his career. But with that being said, I still think the Cowboys played great. I think that they made it difficult on Tom Brady. This is the best defensive performance I've seen the Cowboys play in maybe a month. Everyone was kind of flying around all over the place. The linebackers did great. It was Leighton Vander Esch, first game back since before Christmas. You can see Donovan Wilson running downhill from the safety position on almost every play, laying down hits. I mean, that dude beat the shit out of Chris Godwin. I don't know if you guys saw how many times Chris Godwin had to go to the sideline with like a dead arm.
Yeah.
So it was just fun to watch. And finally the confidence that Dak Prescott had yesterday. He was audibling on like every three plays. He was reading the defense well. He was throwing with confidence and conviction. It wasn't the same guy that we had seen throw almost two interceptions every game, right?
Hmm.
It was completely different Dak Prescott. He was tucking the ball. He was running the ball. I haven't seen him run that much since before his injury. So
He might have had his best game all year, honestly.
it very well could have been his best game all year,
Hmm.
and you could even argue one of his biggest games of his career. Granted, he's won a playoff game before, he's been in other playoff games, but when you really look at it on paper, it's like, hey, the Cowboys need to win this game. This is a game
Right.
that the Cowboys paid Dak Prescott to win. And he went out there
Hmm.
and he did that, and he did it very convincingly. So all in all, other than Brett Maher, it was an A plus across the board in my book. Um, I'm just very thrilled with the result. They did what they were supposed to do, and that's what excites me. There was really no blemish other than Brett.
Oh, see, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I just kept waiting for Tampa to get back into the game at some point. I'm
Right.
sitting there like, come on, come on. Like I'm a Cowboys hater for sure, but like it was like
What?
depressing.
No way.
It was depressing to watch that shit. Like you don't think like Tom Brady's 7-0 all time against the Cowboys.
Hmm.
It's the playoffs. He's at home. It's Monday Night Football, and he just looked all out of sorts. And it doesn't help when like your defense couldn't get off the field in certain
Right.
situations. You know, uh, and your offense just couldn't get clicking, you get the crucial pick in the red zone, which the whole announcers jink. He
The
oh he
announcer's
hasn't
curse.
Right.
he
Yeah.
had he hasn't thrown a red zone pick since he came to the Bucks. Boom, two
Boom.
two plays
First
later, here
one.
comes the
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like that kind of flipped the game right there because it went
Mm-hmm.
from it being 7-6 to now 12-0 since the dude can't make extra points. So and it just like from there it just spiraled out of control, and by the time they ended up scoring, like it was far out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't going to be the Chargers and blow this lead. So
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys were doing everything to get their guys in the best positions to make plays.
Right.
So that was the good thing for them.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing, man, I think now is just Tom Brady's probably at the point of his career where he kind of needs a team to kind of carry him, right? He kind of has to have the pieces because he's not a Patrick Mahomes, he's not a Josh Allen, he's not a Joe Burrow. He just doesn't have that mobility anymore, and it's just he has to have an offensive line to give him time because even when they won the Super Bowl, it was a lot of what play action pass. It was a lot of running the ball first and just
Hmm.
kind of def- blocking with like 7 8 guys and hoping that Mike Evans would get open and having Gronk take on those one on ones underneath. Tom just didn't have that this year. He just didn't have the offensive line. Um, his weapons couldn't stay healthy. Godwin was kind of disappointing, I think, this year, and Mike Evans did Mike Evans things, but I think Tom's gonna he needs a team that's gonna kind of hold them up at this point, and they couldn't do that against Dallas on Sunday. And like I said, I think I texted you guys earlier this week that Michael Parsons was gonna take over, and yeah, he didn't get like I think he got like 1.5
He
sack,
got he
right?
got one sack. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but he was in his face the entire. I mean, he
Oh
was
yeah.
batting down
He
screens.
was annoying as fuck. Honestly, if
Yeah,
you're Tom Brady, you just like, God damn, can someone block that guy?
right.
He's in Brady's face every play.
He was
And if
there
it
every
wasn't him, it
play.
was someone else.
Right, right, and it's just it was like OC said, it was a little depressing to watch. I mean, one of the best football players of all times kind of go out a little bit sad, right? And it's
Hmm.
just even just struggling to move the ball. Like I said, he couldn't even throw screens, which was kind of annoying. It was kind of similar to his performance against San Francisco, where it was kind of sad. Yeah, he kind of got the ball moving a little bit towards the end, but I didn't see it as competitive as all at all. I mean, other than maybe just the recovery and the onside kick, nothing else really went Tampa's way, right? Like I think
It,
it
it
was
was it was one throw, in my opinion. It
right,
was the Julio Jones dime. It was a perfect throw. It was a great read,
right,
and
right.
that was really it. That was
Yeah,
the entire offensive highlight for the Bucks.
I think for sure it had been the biggest beatdown in the weekend, right? Like
Yeah.
the Cowboys were in control of the entire game
Hmm.
from start to finish. Um, what do you guys think is next for Tom? Do you guys think this is it?
No,
He's not
I
coming back to Tampa, right?
No, I think he's done in Tampa. He's got to go
Mm-hmm.
to a place that I think Nick Wright said it today on Colin's show. There's only one team in the NFL that I think that he could win a Super Bowl with, and that team doesn't need him. It's the 49ers.
Right,
They don't they're doing just fine with Brock Purdy. And
right.
even if Brock Purdy loses this week to the Cowboys or he loses next week in the NFC Championship game,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be so thrilled with the way that this season turned out, right? Like you
Right.
had a rookie come in mid-season and
Mm-hmm.
just completely take over this team and have such poise and confidence to play
Mm-hmm.
well.
Right.
Your future looks so bright. I mean, it's very similar what Dak Prescott did. He was the backup, and he had to fight for that backup spot. Tony Romo goes
Right.
down, and Dak is just here you go. The Dallas
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys is all yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing with Brock Purdy. So yeah, I I know a lot of people are talking about Tom Brady to the Raiders. I don't see him going to the Raiders. I know the only reason why he would go to the Raiders is McDaniels. But I don't think he wants Tom Brady because then it's going
Yeah.
to be like, well, McDaniels can't do shit without Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't see a team out there that is like, fuck, look, we're just missing that Tom Brady performance from Monday night
Mm-hmm.
and we would be Super Bowl champions.
Right. No, yeah, I agree. I think the Raiders have bigger problems than just the quarterback. Like, I mean, You're telling me that Tom Brady's going to come be that much better than Derek Carr? I mean,
No.
maybe, but Tom Brady's also not playing defense, right?
Hmm.
Somebody still has to block for him on the offensive line. Yeah, he has Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfro, and Waller, and maybe Josh Jacobs if he comes into town. But I don't think that's going to be a big enough fix for the Raiders for sure.
If you kind of look at it, he's playing in the best division for him, right? The NFC South is the worst division in football.
Right.
So I maybe he sticks it out with the Bucks. I can't see him going to any other team. I think maybe the
Mm-hmm.
Saints, but that's a long shot. At that point, you might as well just stay with the Bucks.
Right.
I know people are talking about maybe to Miami. I don't, I can't see him going back to that division without it being the Patriots. Not just because of Bill Belichick, but I don't think he can beat Tua, and I don't think he can beat Josh Allen. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the Jets are going to get a really good quarterback this offseason, and Tom probably can't beat that quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It just seems like maybe his best fit is to stay in the NFC South.
I mean, he could. He could possibly. I mean, he even make over a move over to the Saints. I mean, depending on when also what Sean Payton does. I mean, maybe even a
Hmm.
move to the Panthers. I mean, the Panthers were knocking on the door, right? Like
Yep.
they could have won the division, and maybe they are a couple pieces away. Maybe they make some big moves in the offseason. Who knows? And maybe Sean Payton being there and them getting to work together might make something spark and Tom to come back. I mean, we'll see. Definitely don't think he's going to go to the Raiders. You have to play, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa twice a year. I don't think he's going to want that.
And then you
Frank
also
Clark
have
twice a
to
year. You don't
you
want to do
have
that.
to out compete these other quarterbacks that are in
Right.
the Herbert, Mahomes,
Exactly.
even Russ. We're going to assume that Russ is going to get better next year, hopefully. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough, man. Like that's not a quarterback friendly division.
Mm-hmm.
The three teams that they've said like are showing interest are Miami, San Francisco, and Las Vegas, right? But like you
Right.
said, San Francisco already has Purdy, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty much like committed to that. Miami just came out and said 2 days ago that they're committing to Tua for next year.
Yeah,
As they
Um,
should.
I think so
and
too.
and Vegas, I mean, I don't even know if they have cap space to go get him. They couldn't even
Right.
pay to fire their coach. How are they going to pay to get Tom Brady? You
Right.
know?
I mean, they wanted him out the door like
They got to
3 weeks ago. Yeah.
every nickel that they got on defense guys.
But
Draft nothing but defense
I
guys and
seriously
focus on
think,
fixing that defense.
yeah, but I seriously still think that Vegas is in play, just because of the whole like Mark Davis keeping him around because he wanted him right a couple years ago, right?
Right. I mean,
Hmm.
but so did the
And
Niners too.
yeah, but I mean, the Niners have their situation figured out.
Right.
Miami has their. The
Mm-hmm.
only reason they keep saying Miami is because apparently his kids are down there with
In
his
Florida.
ex-wife now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but like you guys say, he can't go in and to the Raiders and just fix them immediately because it's going to be the same thing that Derek went through. You're going to
Right.
put up 30 points a game, but you're going to give
Mm-hmm.
up 34. You know,
Exactly.
Hmm.
they don't have anything. So I think he has to find the right spot. Maybe like you guys said, like Drew said, that division is probably the safest bet for him if he wants to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really like the Sean Payton thing you said. That's what I was waiting for you to say or for
Mm-hmm.
somebody to say because I seriously think those two might just team up
Right.
and try to go, one last go at it. But I can't see where they both fit in unless it's New Orleans. But are they committing to Dennis Allen still? And then what? Carolina. You guys mentioned Carolina, but
Hmm.
they don't. They're looking for a head coach. So I don't.
There's a lot
The
of questions,
Colts.
man.
Maybe the Colts. Maybe I don't know.
I mean they
Colts
have the
still got to play.
defense there. Well, they have at least pieces of the defense there that are
There's
set, right?
Jonathan Taylor. They still have Quentin
Yeah.
Nelson. They got
Right.
Leonard on the defensive side of the
Mm-hmm.
ball.
Maybe just had
Tom's
a,
never
maybe a big
Tom's never
receiver.
needed a takeover running back though.
Yeah, he hasn't.
Tom's best years are with no name running backs in New England.
But
But if
also
we talk about
Tom is not as at top of his game either, right? Like he's
Yeah.
not
but
the
it
same Tom.
but if we talk about divisions, the AFC South would be another one that he could probably fit in. And
Right.
you play the Texans twice, Tennessee didn't look all that good the last half of the season.
Hmm.
I mean, Jacksonville,
They're
and
still here and there, right? I mean, yeah,
they've held their own against the Colts, but I think it's the least like competitive out of the AFC divisions, right?
Yeah,
Because
for
right.
sure.
if you go to the East, you got Allen. You go to the West, you got Mahomes and Herbert.
Mm,
You go up north, you got I don't know, maybe what
Burrow, the
Burrow.
Burrow,
Steelers,
Yeah.
the
Steelers.
Ravens, if
Right.
whoever they get, Deshaun Watson.
I mean, I kind of like what you're putting down, man. If you were to switch it to the AFC again, I feel the biggest or the best place for him right now is Indianapolis because I mean, one, they're looking for a head coach, and if that pair with Champagne's going to happen, that's where it would happen, right?
But those are two very egotistical guys. I don't know if they could be in the same room because Sean's gonna want it his way, right?
Right.
And Tom's gonna want it his way.
And then
Wasn't it the
So,
same?
Ursay's going to want it his way. Yeah.
Isn't that how it was with Bill Belichick though?
well,
He
I think
left
Bill
there with
got
six
got a
rings.
yeah, but I think I guess Tom has proven in his career that he's willing to put the team above anything else.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Bruce Arians also wasn't like the walking mat, right? Like Bruce Arians also, I'm pretty sure, had his words with Tom also, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, we can go on and on about it, but we'll
So it
see what
seems like he'll
happens.
stay in the South somewhere. That's we kind of AFC South, NFC South. That should be the best area for him.
I think so. I agree, for sure, because those are definitely the two divisions where the team that won the division was like a sub 500 team, right? And I feel like those are probably the two divisions that are still up in the air where anybody
Hmm.
can win. But yeah, we'll see what it goes.